Joey Logano joins the elite club of NASCAR drivers, winning his third NASCAR title in an epic battle with his teammate Ryan Blaney. Let's break down NASCAR's 2024 Phoenix Championship race. Hello everybody, welcome to Dirty Air. I'm your host Alex Lambert, and let's break down NASCAR's Phoenix Championship race where Joey Logano is able to win his third NASCAR title, joining elite company. We'll take a look at some names. He's only the 10th driver ever to win at least 3 championships in the NASCAR Cup Series. We'll take a look at some of the guys that did not win today. Ryan Blaney was oh so close to catching teammate Joey Logano, couldn't quite do it. William Byron, Tyler Reddick, not as much speed. We'll talk about those two, the guys that were in the Final Four that did not win the championship. We'll take a look at the top 10. We'll take a look at some things we have to say goodbye to following this 2024 NASCAR season. Martin Truex Jr. ran his last race today. Kyle Busch's win streak now officially comes to an end. Stewart-Haas Racing is now going to close their doors and will not reopen for 2025. Let's get into it. We have a lot to discuss following the NASCAR Cup Series Championship race, but let's start out by talking about Joey Logano. And there's a lot to talk about, right? Joey Logano is a very intimidating driver, although off the racetrack, I would say he doesn't seem like a very intimidating person. Very, very nice guy off the racetrack, but on the racetrack, when he puts the helmet on, a completely different Joey Logano, right? Kyle Busch called him Two-Face before, which is certainly interesting. Joey Logano has a personality that is liked by some, hated by others. Joey Logano has a very unique story of getting fired from Joe Gibbs Racing, which he brought up in his post-race interview immediately following the race. A lot to discuss about Joey Logano. Is this a legitimate championship, right? There's been a few talks about that. Worst average finish of any NASCAR champion ever in NASCAR history, 17.11, worst average finish ever. Remember how bad it was for Joey Logano at the beginning of the year, but let's just break it down, right? Joey Logano's story is very unique. In his early days, when he's still to date the youngest winner ever in a rain-shortened New Hampshire race. He has beat Kyle Busch that day. He's the youngest winner ever in the NASCAR Cup Series, by date. He's the youngest driver ever to win. That was at New Hampshire when he drove for Joe Gibbs. But ultimately, he got, ruffled up a lot. Tony Stewart, a few other guys would knock, and really anybody. If you go back, and this was before I was watching, but, we've seen multiple clips of this. When Joey Logano was young, he got moved around a lot. Almost reminds me of an earlier Kyle Larson, if some people can relate to that, if they remember watching Larson in 2014, 15, and 16, right, when Larson couldn't get that win. But Joey Logano was by far the worst. Got knocked out of the way by anybody when he was leading in the closing stages of a race and could not get a win because of that. And they really created a monster. They created a driver that doesn't take anything from anybody. And not only does he, a previous Kyle Busch, where if you hit him, he hits you back harder. Joey Logano hits first, and he hits you so hard you can't get him back. You go back to Darlington 2022, when he knocked William Byron out of the way. You go back to Martinsville, I believe it was 2018, when Joey Logano won the championship, knocking Martin Truex out of the way. Joey Logano takes what he wants on the racetrack, and he doesn't do anything, excessively dangerous, right? I mean, you can go back to Matt Kenseth 2015 as well, another example where he did receive some payback, but ultimately was able to recover from that. So Joey Logano, very unique story, but it is sort of therapeutic that a driver that got fired from a top-tier team in 2013 for not putting up results, for not being, aggressive enough, flipped the switch overnight and became super aggressive and is now a 3-time NASCAR champion. And that sometimes shows you that you do have to be aggressive on the racetrack when it's needed, right? That doesn't mean be a bad person, go out there and wreck somebody, but it does show that you have to change, and things will change people. Another thing that's interesting, Joey Logano's had his highs and lows, right? That's what's also makes this championship therapeutic. You go back to last year, certainly not near as good as this year. You go back to all the even number, the odd numbered years, right? We talk about that. Joey Logano's had some bad ones. I go back to 2017 when he misses the playoffs. I go back to 2015 when he gets wrecked by Matt Kenseth in the final round, in the second to last round of the playoffs, as a payback move to take him out. Joey Logano has had some ups and downs emotionally, but he's always been able to recover from those. Even today, right? That probably prepared him for today. We can go to this championship race where things were not looking great for Logano. Had mistakes on pit road early in the race. He was leading the early stages, had mistakes on pit road, lost the lead, lost a lot of track position on the final restart. Takes off immediately. Ryan Blaney has a little bit of a stumble. We can take a look at it. And Ryan Blaney just falls back a little bit, did not get the best start, and that ultimately could have been the deciding factor in this championship race when we go back and look. Another question, is this championship legitimate? And I can't say that it's not, right? Because the format is the format. This is the 11th season of the format since 2014. We can argue whether it's legitimate or not. I think the only other argument of this sometimes is, well, really all of Joey Logano's championships, we sort of get this argument because he's not as good in the regular season, sort of kicks it up when the playoffs begin. But Kyle Busch 2015, when he missed a few races due to injury, got a playoff waiver. But I can't say that this is not legitimate, right? Because every team and driver that is looking to make the playoffs or win the championship is the goal in mind, knows the format, right? They're racing this format. This is the format they're racing. If the format's different, Joey Logano races different. He doesn't do what he did to make the playoffs, right? Same thing with every other driver in the field. So the way Joey Logano was able to capitalize in Nashville in a sort of that was, I will admit, a bit of a fluky situation, but he made the playoffs off of that. Won in the first round of the playoffs, won in the second to last round of the playoffs, and then won the championship race. Joey Logano, 4 wins this year, obviously showed a lot of speed. Now, was he fast at the beginning of the year? No doubt he was not. He was, had a really strong run in the Daytona 500, but immediately when we got to the normal racetracks, right, the non-Daytona, Talladega, Atlanta type tracks, Joey Logano struggled all season long. Got that win in Nashville, and it was like the flip of a switch from that point forward. Joey Logano was a very fast race car and was able to advance into the next round of each playoff round and win his 3rd NASCAR Cup title. So I would say very legitimate championship. It's his 3rd one, right? You don't luck into 3 NASCAR championships all in similar ways. You go back to 2018, the Big 3. He beat them, right? The Big 3 and me. Joey Logano beat those drivers. This was a point of conversation. This has been a point of conversation for every single Joey Logano championship, whether it's legitimate or not. If it's all a luck of the draw, Joey Logano doesn't win 3. You don't luck into 3 championships all in a span of, 6 or 7 years, right? That's not going to happen. Let's talk about the losers of today, right? Unfortunately, Ryan Blaney came up short, very close, but couldn't quite get to him. But Ryan Blaney, over the last couple of seasons, has really ramped up his career, right? This is a driver that Kyle Petty said he's reminded of a Casey Kane, a driver that has a lot of potential, but has not yet and probably will not reach it. And I think that got to Ryan Blaney, not those particular comments, but that idea of Ryan Blaney considering, a driver that wins a race or 2 every year, but doesn't win championships, isn't even in the threat for winning championships. He's completely changed that narrative. A couple of Final Four appearances in a row. Won the championship a year ago, runner-up this year, very well with Ryan Blaney. Once again, it's all about the format, right? How can he race the format? I think it's very possible Ryan Blaney could become a multiple-time champion. It's very difficult to do in this format, but I think with where he's at right now at his race team, very possible, but Ryan Blaney just comes up short. William Byron finishing 3rd, just didn't have enough, and I feel like that's what we've talked about all year with William Byron. Got 3 wins early in the year, won the Daytona 500. That's life-changing. That's darn near as big. Some people might consider bigger than a NASCAR championship, winning the Daytona 500. So big season overall for William Byron. But I feel like this was the case all year. Won at COTA later on, won at Martinsville in April, and it has not won a race since. Just came up short. Consistent all year long, top 10, top 5 in the playoffs. He could finish 2nd or 3rd, but he could not get a win at the end of the regular season like he could a year ago. And this is a common theme with Byron. He's really good at the beginning of the year, like the best driver in NASCAR at the first half of the season, and that begins to fade as we reach into the summer portion. Sometimes it fades heavier than other seasons, but it just faded just enough this year. We couldn't catch Joey Logano, couldn't catch Ryan Blaney, and it could be a Phoenix thing. It could be some of the racetracks in the later stages of the season, but those still matter. And if William Byron wants to win a NASCAR championship, once again, he's 2 Final Four appearances in a row, he's going to have to find a way to get over that hump in the second half of the season. Him and Rudy Fugle have got to figure out how to stay on top instead of be on top and then lose it. Tyler Reddick, 6th position. He was sort of that one driver. I feel like there's always one driver in the Final Four every year that's sort of out of it. The only exception where one driver won it was 2016. I remember Jimmy Johnson was kind of the 4th driver all day. Then some chaos happened. Jimmy Johnson won the championship in that 2016 championship race. But besides that, there always seems to be a 4th driver that's just out of it, doesn't really have a chance. All day is not talked about, doesn't have a chance to win the championship today. That was Tyler Reddick, unfortunately for him. Finishes 6th today, 4th place finish, but still a lot of positives, right? Obviously, you made the championship 4, first time 2311. A lot of drama next year for the Toyota in the 2311 camp. So I would take this and run with it for sure. But if they can gain on a little bit of speed, learn this particular racetrack a little more, they can focus on winning a championship in 2025. I certainly would not be surprised to see any of these 4 drivers back in the championship 4 very soon, if not next year, right? Because all of these 4 drivers are at the top of their game right now. Nobody really lucked into this, right? certainly that's my take on it. Let's take a look at the top 10 in the race, right? Joey Logano, Ryan Blaney, William Byron, obviously 3 of the championship 4 contenders finishing top 3. Kyle Larson, solid run for him, finishing out his season in the 4th position. Christopher Bell, obviously what I would consider a call by NASCAR. I still don't totally agree with last week, but it was the call regardless. Christopher Bell, 5th place today, had a lot of speed, but sort of got caught in on the wrong thing, a strategy. He might even let the championship guys race a little bit. But Christopher Bell was fast all day, had a chance to go for the race win, but couldn't quite get it done. Once again, Tyler Reddick, 6th, the last of the final 4. Bubba Wallace, finishing 7th, solid day for him in that Toyota after a bit of a rough year for the 23 team. Obviously, his teammate was in the championship 4. Wallace didn't make the playoffs, so that's sort of frustrating, but could be some encouragement to do better next season. Chase Elliott, 8th place finish, a bit of a rough season for him after missing the championship 4 last week. Chris Buescher, 9th place finish. Daniel Suarez, pretty solid run for him on an oval, finishing in the 10th position. Few other storylines to talk about, right, is this is the last race of the 2024 NASCAR seasons, and we have some goodbyes to say, right, a lot. We found out this morning that FedEx will most likely not be returning to Denny Hamlin. That was because of Denny Hamlin posted something on X, saying thank you FedEx with some memory. So that's certainly going to be strange, right? Never seen the FedEx on the number 11 Denny Hamlin Toyota again. That's a new sight. That's kind of like when M&M's left Kyle Busch a couple of seasons ago. That's just something that you don't expect that's going to completely go away. So that's certainly a little strange. And then, of course, Stewart-Haas Racing, obviously they will close their doors following this NASCAR Cup Series season. They will not reopen in 2025. Very unfortunate, some situations there. A lot of employees losing their jobs, but they did. And once again, Stewart-Haas Racing, what the memories they brought, right? I started watching in 2013. I got to see one of those championships live with Kevin Harvick in 2014, the first year of the knockout style playoff format. I didn't see Tony Stewart win his championship at Stewart-Haas, so 2-time championship team, a lot of race wins, right? You go back to earlier this year with Chase Briscoe, a lot with Kevin Harvick, Eric Almirola, even Kurt Busch winning some. So certainly a lot of memories with Stewart-Haas Racing, so it's sad to see them go away, but, time continues to roll on. Martin Truex Jr. as well, very emotional situation there with Martin Truex Jr. not winning a race. A little frustrated with Martin Truex Jr. as a fan, right? I go back to Richmond. I keep going back to Richmond back on Easter Sunday this year, all the way back in, April or May, that Richmond race where Truex had it won, but NASCAR threw a caution right at the end of the race due to Kyle Larson spinning, and that essentially Truex was unable to capitalize. Denny Hamlin was able to win that race. By the way, Hamlin has not won since then. Just very frustrating for me that Truex was not able to get that final win in his final season. Kind of reminds me of Kevin Harvick last year in Phoenix when he should have won in his final year but didn't because of a late overtime caution, but frustrating. But Martin Truex Jr., once again, the memories are there, right? Has been winning races for 21 years, winning that championship in 2017 with Furniture Row Racing. I wouldn't say a team that was, complete underdog or a team that shouldn't have won it, but a team that doesn't have the finance or doesn't have the same equipment and engineers as a Penske or a Hendricks or a Joe Gibbs was able to win a championship in 2017. Martin Truex Jr., Cole Pearn had a lot to do with that, and that's a good props for him. And Martin Truex Jr. also just being that clean driver. Every driver has their own personality. Talked about it earlier with Joey Logano, Kyle Busch, a few other guys, Kyle Larson. You can point out their driving style. And Martin Truex Jr.'s driving style, whether I agreed with it or not, was clean all the time. And you can say that the nice guy won't win and they can't win, but shoot, Martin Truex Jr. won a lot of races and won a championship all very cleanly. Very rarely would Martin Truex Jr. get into another driver, cause a wreck, put him in the wall, move him out of the way. That's something Truex didn't do because he was confident in what he could do on the racetrack and be able to get a race win. So I think that's a very good statement for him to retire on, and I'm glad he stuck with that. Even though he got roughed up a few times, I'm glad he stuck with that, and I hope to see Martin Truex Jr. succeed in the Daytona 500 in February for one of his final races, but he's done racing full-time after today. One last goodbye we can say, I have to bring it up, Kyle Busch's win streak. This is the first time since 2004 Kyle Busch has not won a race in a NASCAR season. That's a long time, right? A lot has changed since 2004 in NASCAR and in the world in general. It's upsetting. Kyle Busch, this was a terrible season. I think they need to get this turned around very quickly. We'll see what happens, right? Kyle Busch got a little bit better after the Olympic break. Looked like he could have won a couple of races, Daytona, Darlington, even Atlanta earlier this year. Very frustrating that he lost that race. But Kyle Busch got to find a way in this offseason to not only find speed, but capitalize on the big moments, which is something Kyle Busch, used to do, a great job at, but has not done a good job at in the next gen race car. And that's all that matters, right? In sports, especially now in NASCAR with the format, the new car, it's all about capitalizing on the big moments for every driver. And Kyle Busch has sort of not been able to do that. Losing at Daytona last second, losing at Atlanta last second, losing at Darlington because he's not quite able to catch Chris Buescher in the closing laps. Multiple other races over the last 3 years I can think of. 16 times I think he's finished second, more than any other driver in the next gen era. Super frustrating, but I hope to see Kyle Busch back to winning form. Kyle Busch is a driver that's one of the best drivers in the garage, and I'd hate to see it end on a negative note. I'd hate to see him continue not to run great. I think he's another storyline, along with Joey Logano, a few others, that should be added into the storylines every week. I think that'd be great for NASCAR and, of course, Kyle Busch, and, well, I guess I'm also just a big fan. But that's it. 98 days until the Daytona 500 in February. February 16th, we'll kick off the 2025 NASCAR season, which is crazy to think about. It's been a fun year. Got to go to a few races this season with my friends. Got to go in the garage at Nashville. Super awesome. Got to see the Richmond Chaos. But that's really all there is to discuss following the 2024 NASCAR season. I appreciate all of you guys watching all season long. Obviously, we'll do some off-season things, but I hope you guys all return for that Daytona 500 and the Clash in Winston-Salem in February. Should be a lot of fun, but that's it. All there is to talk about following this. Like and subscribe if you like the video. Please share the video if you do. I really appreciate it. And, of course, about the win streak ending at 19 seasons. Let's get rowdy.